Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. Hi, I'm Ralph Labella.
And I'm Ron Sen. And first, I want to talk about the MIAA. The MIAA, always awash in controversy, has to deal with boys swimming in girls' sports. In the fall, girls swimming participates. And 8 schools in Massachusetts have boys on their girls swimming team. Now, boys are competing in the postseason. Boys are setting records in girls swimming. And 6 of the 12 finalists in the 50-yard freestyle were boys. So is it fall swimming, girls swimming, co-ed swimming? What is it?
That's completely ridiculous, Ron. The boys swimming is in the winter and the girls are in the fall.
Right.
Let the boys swim in the winter and the girls in the fall. What are they worried about lawsuits? You have your season to swim. You swim in the winter time. They shouldn't allow it. I mean, I don't know. They're making all these different rules. It's getting crazy, really, out there. I mean, they're worrying about all these lawsuits, Ron.
Well, it's not even about sportsmanship. It's not a level playing field, boys against girls.
And what's
in
wrong
high
with the
school
boys
sports.
and their parents? Parents just say, no, you're not doing it. What's wrong with the parents?
Well, at least in field hockey, the boys have to wear skirts. So you really have to love field hockey to play field hockey if you're a boy.
But then, like you were saying, in volleyball, they can't play in the front row, the boys, when they play in the girls' teams. And the boys are playing volleyball with the girls because they don't have a volleyball team at their school.
Well, that I understand.
Right, and they're keeping them in the back row. They're keeping them away from the front. So, I mean, that's okay. But to swim, would, and going up against girls, I mean, if I parent of a girl, I'd say go out swim them. That's all.
Well, I guess
they're going to let them swim.
The hard feelings could easily come about when, imagine we're in the state finals in volleyball against a team with all boys in the back row that are hammering the ball. We'd be saying, like, what is this? We're not playing girls volleyball, we're playing boys volleyball.
Well, what's the reason? If they have swimming in the winter and the girls swimming is in the fall, why would the boys want to swim in the fall? Why can't they wait for the winter? Are these kids that don't have, where their school maybe doesn't have a boys team?
Well, maybe it's too hard to be a championship swimmer if you're swimming against boys, where if you're swimming against girls and you're 6 inches taller and 40 pounds heavier, more muscular, you can be a champion.
Yeah, I mean, if it happened, and again, I had a daughter swimming against a boy, just go out and out-swim them. That's what I would say.
All right, we're not against boys competing. We love to see boys and girls compete in athletics, but how many sports can they compete on a level playing field at high school level? Golf, maybe. Melrose had a girl on the golf team this year who apparently did well. Golf is not the same physical, demanding sport. It's a great game.
Middle school basketball? Maybe.
Well, the controversies come up that many of the elite women's team in college basketball scrimmage regularly against a team of recruited boys from their college. UConn is certainly one team that does that.
Every day they do.
Right. And obviously you're playing against bigger, faster, stronger players, not necessarily as good basketball players, but they're competing against excellent athletes. And evidently, that's been a difference maker for those teams.
Oh, yeah, you look at UConn's record. I mean, even this year after losing Maya Moore, they have another powerhouse team. So, I mean, I think they scrimmage, I heard, just about every day against that team, the men's team.
Right. I want to say a little bit about sportsmanship in high school basketball. This is a difficult subject because we understand that particularly the boys play a very physical game, an athletic game, fast game. Feelings run high, tempers flare, but some of the games are getting out of control. The players are talking incessantly, trash talk to others, and then it turned into a lot of chippiness in the game the other night, Melrose against Burlington. I'm not saying which team was the instigator because we're not on the floor to see that. I watched the game and I was a little bit disappointed by the way both teams reacted. By the end of the game, there's a lot of cheap shots, elbows, and forearm shivers. It doesn't look like basketball anymore. It looks more like football.
Yeah, you have to get away from that. Basically, what I've seen over the years in boys basketball, they do play hard. They compete at a level. I mean, you can just see them. I remember back to my son when he played, and since then I've been watching high school basketball. And you have to compete at a high level. You're going to get knocked off the court. I mean, you're going to lose if you don't come back at these teams. I remember games when Melrose played Andover, and Andover came down. And first minute, you say, wow, Andover's coming at them. They adjusted. The Melrose players went after them even harder. That's what I always preach. Teams are going to come after you. You got to be ready to go after them even harder. But it's got to be clean.
Well, and not only that, if you chirp at the officials, you're going to get technical fouls. You hurt your team, and you never know when that problem is going to eventually lead to your ejection, a big loss, and you end up being the GOAT, not the hero you think you are. If I remember when Barry Sanders would score a touchdown, he'd run into the end zone, flip the ball to the official, like he'd been there before. We have players who are very good basketball players who should be able to be content with playing outstanding basketball and winning basketball, and instead they have to, make silly cheap shots. If there's a foul called, they hand the ball to the opposing player, who in the NFL you get 15 yards. All you're going to do is aggravate the other team, and eventually it's going to cost you.
Well, too, Ron, what's more important, in all through the years when I've watched teams, what's more important, when someone says like Adams is a great basketball player, it's more important what they say after that. Yeah, but he's a great kid too. You want to hear that, and you want to hear, yeah, Sherlock's a great basketball player. Yeah, and he's a great kid too. You want to hear that because people like us, when we watch it, that's how we reply to that type of a statement. We say, yeah, he's a terrific kid too. He's great to his teammates. He comes out and plays hard. He's a clean player. So through the years, I've always looked at that part of it, especially with the girls. We've had great girls on the high school basketball teams.
Well, if we think about professional sports and Ndamukong Suh, what do we think of first? Is he a great defensive lineman, or he slammed a player's head into the turf and stepped on his arm and then tried to say it was an accident?
Yeah, and some players throughout the years, and it gets up to a lot of players when they get into playing college and pro ball, everybody talks about them as being great players, and they're always, like Melrose has a couple of them here that could play just about on any team. And, people just constantly telling you, you're real good, you're real good, you're real good. You want to still stay grounded, and you want to, appreciate the game and play it the way it's supposed to be played. Because a lot of coaches, when they come and look at these kids, that's what they're going to look at, Ron.
Well, the other thing is what you think you are and what you are aren't necessarily the same thing. I'll give you an example. I won't mention her name because it's not helpful. Terrific player from Wellesley, all-state basketball player, outstanding, one of the best high school players I've seen around here. We saw her play. She's at an Ivy League school playing, and she's getting about 6 minutes a game as a freshman because the talent level, the competition level is so much higher at another point. And it's got to be a little frustrating to be a terrific player and yet find that at the next level you're a good player, but not necessarily the star player. Right,
and again, looking at Melrose, they have this team is probably more talented than any team they've had over the last 15 years, I think. Since the great teams Pappas had, this team could compete with that Green and Byrne and that team, Slattery. That was a great team. I think this team, if they keep their heads on straight, this team could compete with that team. This team could rip right through the Middlesex League. My hope and dream is that I watch them play Charlestown. I don't even know if Charlestown's in Division II still.
I don't know.
They may be one. But I would love to see them because I would love to see them go up against a team that just wants to play up-tempo.
Well, I don't want to see a team lose their dream of being a championship team because of volatile personalities and immaturity on the court.
Yeah. And they have a great coach, and I think Coach will keep them under control.
Well,
this is something new for them, Ron, to be talked as one of the top teams in the state.
Right. Right. We'll talk more about high school sports and basketball later. Now, of course, we're coming up toward the NFL playoffs, and it should be interesting, although at least in the AFC, the first round games aren't necessarily the greatest games ever.
No, you have Pittsburgh going to Denver. It's funny, we were talking about that the other day, and I was saying what Denver has to do is they got to come out throwing the ball. They can't play conservative against Pittsburgh. They've got to take it to Pittsburgh, even though Pittsburgh has a real good defense. Because if you come out conservative against that team, they'll kill you. Well, Tebow's got to throw the ball. He's got to roll.
It's hard to imagine Denver scoring more than 17 points. And Pittsburgh, there's even talk that Charlie Batch is going to start for them, in which case, that could make a difference, of course.
But they have to be aggressive. They're playing at home. They have to take it to them. If they stay there and just hope not to turn the ball over and let their defense win the game, they won't. They've got to score. They've got to score at least one touchdown in each half. You figure there's 14, maybe a couple of field goals, get to 20. They could hold Pittsburgh to 13, 14, or 17. My worry is that Pittsburgh beats them 17-6 or something because they're so conservative.
Well, 3 out of 4 games are lost, not won, and it's easy to imagine a couple turnovers being the difference in that game if somehow Denver were able to pull an upset. I don't know what the point spread is, but I don't like Denver's chances too much there.
It's going to be up around 8, I would think. I think it'll be around there. But the team that I think is going to win is Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati will beat Houston. And if Cincinnati wins Saturday, then the Pats know they're playing Cincy, no matter what happens in the Pittsburgh game. And that's going to be a good opening game for the Pats to go up against Cincy, a rookie quarterback who's been sick all week. So I don't even know if he'll be playing Saturday. But at least the Pats will know. They'll have a pretty good idea Saturday, because if Cincy loses, Pats are going to figure Pittsburgh's going to beat Denver, so they'll be playing Pittsburgh.
Right, and a lot of discussions centered on how good or how bad the Patriots' defense is, and I know there's a lot of talk about yards, but it's ultimately about points, and at least by points allowed, they're pretty much a middle-of-the-road team.
Yeah, and it's where they are right now. I mean, that first period, I was totally disgusted. I was saying, I'm giving up on this defense. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, imagine you were at the game. It's a little bit cold. After one quarter, it's 21-0. You say, like, I'm out of here. I can't stand it.
But you look at the fans. I'm watching them. They're showing the fans in the stands, and they're kind of staying under control, down 21-0. But it did help when they benched Johnson for putting on that display after the touchdown. I mean, it was a stupid move. It wasn't a bad move, but it was stupid.
You'd have to think.
He's saying Happy New Year. He's got
right. You'd have to think that he'd know that it's going to draw, an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. I'm sure he didn't anticipate that he was going to get benched.
But he's going to be a free agent this year. That's sort of patch you go after. Get a guy like him.
Oh.
Belichick will straighten him out. He won't do anything crazy like that. And then the tight end gets hurt after the first period. But that aside, that's the best defense that the defensive backs have played in 2 years, in the last 3 quarters. I mean, Morris was unbelievable.
Well, the question is whether Molden and Sterling Moore can get it done against, upper echelon receivers, not guys you never heard of.
Well, Moore stepped in on 2 passes. He made 2 real good interceptions. McCourty's was a lucky one.
Right.
It deflected off the receiver, and he got that. It deflected about 10 yards. They look good. They were all over the receivers. But again, who are these receivers?
Well, exactly. And Ryan Fitzpatrick had a terrific start to the season, wound up getting a mega contract, and now I'm wondering if the Bills are saying, I wonder if we overpaid.
But you know what was funny? In that first period, he did everything right.
Right.
He threw for almost 200 yards. He did everything right. But what I looked at in that defense that they set up, with McCourty playing safety now with Chung back, they're 2 physical players who were probably the quickest 2 backs, defensive backs on the team. So they played a cover 2 after the first period with McCourty and Chung back there. They were making a lot of good hits, and they cover a lot of territory there. And the cornerbacks, now Arrington got benched after the first period.
Right. For fans who are not familiar with the cover 2, you have 2 deep safeties, each responsible for covering half the field. The cornerbacks play man-to-man on their side and try to keep the receiver in front of them. The middle is a bit open, theoretically, if you have strong teams with tight ends, which the Patriots have obviously been vulnerable to early in the season, especially against Pittsburgh, and the deep outs, which is a hard throw for quarterbacks to make because you have to throw over the cornerback in front of the safety. So, if you have elite quarterbacks you're going up against, it's a vulnerable defense, but how many elite quarterbacks are there?
But I think that's a great move for the Pats, though, McCourty at safety now. He was getting beat big time at cornerback. These other 2 cornerbacks are more physical now. Arrington's got to play better. Again, he was benched for more. But you know what I noticed, though, in the last 3 periods? The linebackers were taking away the middle of the field. But when you look at it, you had 2 deep, playing 3 nickel most of the time with 3 cornerbacks. There's 5 there, and you drop the 2 linebackers in the middle. There's 7, so you can rush 3 or 4, at times, and once in a while blitz a cornerback because you have 3 in there. I like what they did in the 3rd period, but again, you don't know if that was junk they were going up against.
Well, and the other thing is that if you talk to people among ourselves or anybody, the fans' expectations are so controlled. Nobody's saying, the Patriots are going to sweep through and take the Super Bowl, because everybody says, well, the defense isn't good enough to win. So,
Yeah, but
you
what about New Orleans and what about Green Bay's defense?
No, they're very similar to the Patriots. I don't know if the Patriots can keep up with Green Bay or New Orleans, for that matter, in a shootout, but we'll find out.
I'm really hoping that the defense that they showed in the last 3 quarters, that they've really, it's all coaching with these young guys. Most of it's coaching. They were covering a lot of ground, those guys.
The team I'm kind of worried about sneaking in there again is the Giants, because they've got a good quarterback in Eli Manning, yes, bite my tongue, and they've got the defense. Now, they've got good receivers in Cruz and Nix. They've got a pretty solid team, and they gave Green Bay a real battle earlier in the season.
Yeah, but the teams they have to beat Atlanta at home. I don't know how to get at home at 8-8. They were 8-8, right? No, they're 9-7. They were 9-7. They're home.
Well,
and Atlanta's coming to them. Atlanta has you win the division, you become a higher seed. Atlanta has a better record. Same thing with Denver and Pittsburgh. That's a disgrace that Pittsburgh has to go to Denver and play. Denver's 8-8, and Pittsburgh, I believe, was they were 12-4. But same thing with the Giants now. Atlanta has to go there, and Atlanta's had a better season. That's going to be a great game. That's going to be a great game. The New Orleans-Detroit game is going to be a great game, too. There's going to be a lot of scoring in that game. But the Giants would have to beat Atlanta. They'd have to beat, I believe, New Orleans and probably Green Bay. That's a tough go right there.
That's a tough road. But and then if somehow the 49ers will win, it might change the whole league's orientation toward, well, we do need defense and we do need a running game.
But the one thing that worries me the most about the Pats, when they go up against a good defense like Pittsburgh or Baltimore, are their receivers going to get off the line of scrimmage? I mean, their receivers stink coming off the line of scrimmage run, except for the tight ends.
If you look at sort of outside the numbers play, they don't get anything. I mean,
Brant is just about useless now.
Well, he must be hurt, and he's
old.
Jeez,
what the hell are they doing with him?
He's 47 years old. I know, we know that.
But that's why someone like Johnson would help out. If you have Johnson and Welker in there, someone like Johnson who can spread the field, they have no one who can spread the field. They have to rely on their tight ends. They have to rely on Gronkowski going down the middle on a 20-yard pass over the middle to spread out the defense. Because they're not going to worry about Branch and they're not going to worry about Welker.
Well, Gronkowski and Hernandez have been putting up the numbers all year long.
I think, what's his name? Is it Underwood?
Underwood.
I think he's going to be a key. He's got the most speed in the team now. I think they made a big mistake when they got rid of Tate, when they cut him.
Well, the other guy who's had an impressive stretch run is Ridley. He's been very good down. And, obviously down near the goal line, I'm sure the team feels more comfortable in Green Ellis because he
doesn't fumble.
Exactly.
And Ridley fumbled the other day, but it went out of bounds.
Right. So
you don't think Belichick talked to him about that?
He's probably heard nothing but that.
But he's a real good pickup. They got him in the 3rd round. They got Vereen in the 2nd round, but he's been hurt all year. I mean, he's even quicker than Ridley. So, I mean, they're in pretty good shape with running backs.
But we have to mention something about the Jets. There's no crying in football unless you're Rex Ryan. Apparently he was in tears in the locker room after the Jets' recent loss. Probably should have been in tears after they lost to the Giants. One of the Giants players walked off the field and told him, "It's time to shut up, fat boy."
How about Holmes? He made Holmes a captain before the season started.
Well, Holmes is, what can you say?
One of the biggest jerks in football. He makes him a captain. Now, that doesn't make him look good, Ryan.
Well, it's about being a professional. If you're a professional athlete, you have to, work professionally. You have to prepare, you have to execute, and you have to face the music when it doesn't go your way.
Here's my prediction. The Colts are going to give Manning his $23 million bonus, whatever it is. Then they're going to trade him to the Jets for 2 first-round picks and a defensive player. And then the Colts will be sitting pretty.
They're going to have to give up more than 2 first-round picks. They're going to have to give up the moon, the sun, and the stars.
Well, they'll give up whatever the Colts want. The reason why I'm saying 2 is because you're not 100% sure if how many years Manning has left. But if Manning has 2 real good years left, that's the one way the Jets will have a chance to win the Super Bowl.
Well, and there's no way the Colts can have, $35 million worth of quarterback back there with Luck and Manning.
Luck's tremendous, though, Ron.
He is, but I know that people don't like Robert Griffin III, but I think he's going to be a good quarterback too, as long as he doesn't try to run too much because he can get hurt.
There are a lot of good quarterbacks. But just watching Luck, he's so smart, he's tall, the way he releases the ball, gets rid of the ball real quick. he's going to be the perfect quarterback for them. And then again, if they trade him for at least 2 first-round draft picks, I mean, they'll be able to, have a half-decent team in a few years. But having Luck, that's working out terrific for the
Well,
Colts.
what about the Napoleons being fired out in Indianapolis and Manning saying, well, I don't know anything about this. What shocking, unbelievable. You think that Irsay didn't talk to Manning about that?
And I think I heard that Irsay wanted to get rid of the son as a general manager.
Right.
And then his father, I guess, he was causing problems, so he got rid of both of them.
Well, I guess that's enough football for right now, and we'll be right back with our next segment.
On and off the court, Visionary Basketball Group delivers programs that empower players with skills for athletic and personal success. Our players undergo learning experiences that position them for positive lifelong achievement on and off the court. With a year-round training philosophy, BBG can assist you in reaching your full potential as a player with conditioning, basketball fundamentals, position-specific training, and skills and drills taught by the best coaches in New England. For more information, visit our website at visionarybasketball.com or drop into our new athletic performance center located at 152 Tremont Street, Melrose, Mass. VBG, complete your vision.
Ladies and gentlemen, can anybody play defense in the NFL? Can anyone cover? And I'll say that like James T. Kirk, even though I'm not a Star Trek fan. Can anyone cover? In this year of the passer, where records fell like gas prices in an election year, no. The answer is no. Take a look at the Packers. Great offense. They don't know if they can play defense. They can make plays. New Orleans Saints. Great offense. Can't really play defense, but they can make some plays. New England Patriots. Great offense. No, they can't make plays on defense. But I'll tell you what. Defenses, yes, they are down. Is there any wonder why? Many years back, Jack Lambert, pretty good linebacker, he made the statement quarterbacks should wear skirts. Now, what he did not mean was that they were wimps, because it's a tough position. You have to be smart, but yes, you have to be tough. You hit on almost every play. What he meant was what they were doing to the game was making it so that you couldn't even hit the quarterback anymore. And he was right. Took 30-something years to really come to fruition, but yes, they have finally done it. Tom Brady, pretty good quarterback, yeah? 2-time league MVP. How about his stats? You want to know something? He's got so many stats that I wrote them down. Because you know what? I don't have a teleprompter, and you don't care. Tom Brady, 39 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 5,235 yards for a 105 quarterback rating. You know what that gets him? Probably 6th in the MVP race this year. How's that sound? Think about that. Anyway, as I said, did passers really get that much better? Well, I'll tell you what, you got to be more accurate nowadays. Of course, you can't help but be more accurate because passes are shorter and yards after catch are way up. But defenses are way more complex. But back to what Lambert meant, the way the league has cracked down on breathing heavily on quarterbacks, coupled with the crackdown on helmet-to-helmet hits by defensive players, is the name of the game to let the receiver catch it and then knock him out of bounds? Rush the passer, but if you hit him too hard, you might get flagged. Don't dare hit him too hard, whatever you do. You know defensive players are holding back. I mean, to make this game safer, to protect the marquee star players, they took the teeth out of it. I got an idea. How about designing more better equipment? How about a safer helmet? You think that might make a little bit more sense than to, like, let's take the teeth out of the game completely? Could Ronnie Lott or Rodney Harrison or Dick Butkus, Jack Lambert, Lawrence Taylor, all these guys known for ferocious defensive play, could they play today? Because I don't think so. I'll tell you what, this is now fantasy football. All you got to do is look at James Harrison from the Steelers. That guy would have been one of the best 30 years ago. Now he's just a thug. You want fantasy football numbers? I'll give you some fantasy football numbers. 15 of 21 and 37 of the top 50 passing seasons in league history have happened since 2000. How's that? You need more proof? Fantasy numbers? 7 out of the top 10 touchdown passers in season. This is in season now. Dan Marino, he rose that bar pretty high with 48 back in 1984. Would you believe 7 of the last 10 have happened since 2000? I mean, think about it. It's almost like the turn of the century, and this just became like 7-on-7. No defense. It's find the open guy, hit him, somebody will push him out of bounds, hope for no flag, and that's it. That's what you got, fantasy football. Dan Marino in that magical 1984 season, he threw for 5,000 yards. It was an incredible performance. 48 touchdowns he had, 5,000 yards. And that 5,000 yards stood for 27 years. So guess what? Tom Brady broke his record this year. Unfortunately, so did Drew Brees. And Matthew Stafford also passed 5,000 yards. How would you like to be Matthew Stafford? He threw for 5,000 yards, and he didn't get the first, the second, the third, the fourth, or the fifth. He only had the 6th best with 5,000 yards. Again, my magical stats. Matt Stafford, 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, 5,038 yards. He's not even going to get mentioned in the MVP. I mean, think about that. That's a ridiculous season. Aaron Rodgers, he sat out the 16th game of the season for himself. 45 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 4,643 yards. If he played, he would have been in the 5,000 club too. Highest rating in league history, 122.5. Drew Brees, imagine 71% of his passes he completed, 46 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. How about Cam Newton? Rookie, he threw for 4,000 yards. Imagine a rookie comes into this league and he rushed. He broke Steve Grogan's record that's been around for 35 years. He ran for 14 touchdowns as a quarterback. Hey, can you believe this? Stats like that. How can you even play defense in this league? You want defense? Watch hockey, because it's not going to happen here. I'll tell you, they want to protect the star players. They want to take the teeth out. You know, 4,000 yards used to be a big thing if you were a passer. If you did that this year, you finish 11th. 11th! This is not your father's NFL, and it's too bad, because I'll tell you, that was a great game.
Hey, this is Paul Rabel from the Boston Cannons, and you're watching Let's Talk Sports.
Welcome back. Tonight for our sports conversation, we have Coach Jim Blyler of the Melrose High School wrestling team. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Jim.
Tell us a little bit about your program.
Well, I coach the varsity, Melrose High School varsity and junior varsity, and we're off to a good season this year. Overall, we're 7-5 with 2 tournaments under our belt. We're 5-2 in the league, which is good so far. And our last match was Wednesday night, and we beat Reading 40-36, and we haven't really beat them in a long time. So we're doing okay so far.
Well, we're happy to see Reading lose at anything.
Yeah.
How many matches do you have?
We're about 22 to 25 in a season. So, plus the end of the year, it's all tournaments.
No, do they break it down small division and large division in
the
wrestling
middle
too?
in the Middlesex League, they do.
So do you compete twice against the small division team?
One time against each school.
Then you go out. Then you play.
And then you
of...
play a lot of non-league, Merrimack Valley, whoever has openings.
And you schedule that?
Yep.
I heard you schedule a tough.
Yep, with a couple tough teams. We've wrestled Chelmsford, Westford Academy. Wrestled some good teams down south, and so we try to.
Does it end up being more of a team sport or an individual sport that you play as part of a team?
It could be both. It could be a tournament. Could be if you're a real good team, you could be a good tournament team. But for the most part, you wrestle a lot of dual meets, so it's more of a team sport. But each individual has to go out and do his job, like most other team sports. But he's out there by himself, so which is a unique part of wrestling, where one person goes out and has to do his job in order for the whole team to win.
Now, how many different weight classes are there, and do you have wrestlers to fill each class?
This year we have, there are 14 weight classes. They changed the weights and kind of added in a football weight, which is good. They added an extra weight up top. And with 2 football coaches that coach wrestling, we can't get a heavyweight, but we have up till 220, and heavyweight is from 220 to 285.
So do you lose out on that if
We
you don't
lose
have one?
in a dual meet. We'll lose 6 points,
You lose 6 points.
and we've been giving up 6 points every match this year, 6 to 12, because our 220 had a shoulder injury, so we're kind of giving up 12 at the beginning. So
Who's your 220?
Joe Squazzaro, first year wrestler, he
Well, you-
came over from basketball and decided to wrestle. So
There was a Squazzaro that played football too. Is that
same
his
guy.
brother? That's the same
no,
guy?
that's the same kid. Yep.
And he was doing 220?
He's wrestling 220, weighing about 195.
Wow.
So 195 Spencer Walsh. So Spencer wants that weight.
So you have some tough kids in that team.
We get some tough.
How many
kids.
football players do you have?
We get a bunch of football players. We had the Zeke Vayner, the soccer goalie, came out for the first time this year. He's starting for us at 182.
Isn't it? I mean, with so much technique involved, isn't it pretty tough to just show up and start wrestling?
It is tough, and I'm sure they'll tell you that the technique part of it is the hardest part. But the way we go about practice is we just condition, lift weights, and just wrestle in the room and let them find what works for them and what doesn't. So, we do teach a lot of technique, but it takes someone with that short period of time to get well at it. So.
Do any of them start in middle school? Is there any? Is there
We
a
do.
middle school
We have
program?
we have a middle school program. They start about the same time as us, the Monday after Thanksgiving, and then we have a youth program, and they're starting a little late this year, but they're under under a new staff, and Steve Fogarty is going to be coaching the youth, and they're going to be starting January 16th this year.
With one campus, could middle schoolers, if they somehow had the skill or experience, compete on a high school team?
No, I think the rule is you have to have two. You have to be under one principal. There are some schools that their 8th graders do compete at the varsity level, but at Melrose they stay in the middle school, which is good.
Are you involved with the middle school?
I'm
program?
a little bit. I'm in the room. They come in after our practice, and then if we have a meet, they'll come in right after school. So we overlap each other a lot.
Does
So.
John Muldoon supervise that? Is that part of his
Yep,
program?
yep, that's part of his program. Yep.
And you have coaches that I
Yep.
imagine that played for you, right? That coach? and
Oh
help
yeah,
out?
we have my staff is Tim Morris, the head football coach, and Craig Drowski, who is football coach at Melrose, who's now a teacher at Medford. He's been helping out the last few years. He wrestled at Melrose, along with a ton of alumni that come back, especially right now with break. They come in the room and work with the kids. So there's a ton of guys in the room.
How big has that become now, wrestling, where you have the youth playing now? When did this all start?
I would probably say about 5 years ago it started to, about 6 or 7 with the youth. Steve Marisolo, who's the trainer, started the, he didn't start it. It's been going on for years, but he was the coach for a long time. And then the youth program came around probably in about 3 or 4 years ago, and they've been going ever since.
Good.
We've talked about in basketball, occasionally we have players who might not be as talented, but are just so ferocious and intense that they can have unexpected success. Does the same thing apply, or do you
Absolutely.
need... Okay.
Spencer Walsh came out, not to just hop on him, we have a ton of great wrestlers on the team that are doing very well, in tournaments. But Spencer came out last year as a first-year wrestler and placed 3rd in the section to qualify for the States. And it was his first year wrestling
So he had no technique at all until last year.
last year. And this year he's doing well. He's a co-captain with Matt Finicos and Matt DeSimo.
Do they love it, the kids?
You know what? Wrestling's a sport where you hate it when you walk in the door because you know what you're going to go through. Practices are brutal. It's similar to probably training for something like MMA or boxer training. Same type of training. But like you try to sell the point. You go home, take a shower, eat something, and you're good.
As a general philosophy, do you train kids up to a higher weight class, or you train them down to a lower weight class, or it varies with the kid?
It varies with the kid. If we're, as a football coach, we try not to. I go with like maybe a 5-pound rule. go 5. If you're going to drop 5, drop 5. If you're going to go up a class,
Spencer must naturally be about 200, 205, I think.
Naturally, he's about 200, and he started out the season at 195, but then we get a 2+ rule January 2nd. So now he can weigh in the morning at 197, which
is a holiday weight rule.
It's the holiday weight rule, so you get +2. So, and then he can weigh in at 197 in the morning. At night, when he weighs in before his match, he can weigh 200 pounds.
Any of the linemen doing it? McGonigal?
No, we've been trying since,
They're tough kids, both of them.
Yeah, we've been trying to get those guys, and they, it's tough as a senior.
Pizzini's a tough. They're all tough. Boy,
absolutely.
If they wrestled.
Yeah, they'd be great. They'd be great. Yeah.
Who's the top team in the Middlesex League?
I would say right now Winchester.
No, they're in the other. They're in the large.
They're in the large division. They're in the large.
Now, if you win the small division, what happens then?
You're the small champ.
And that's it. You don't compete against anybody. You just go individually into the states.
Yeah, yep. You go as a team, and the Middlesex League separated into Division 2 and 3, and we're Division 3. So we'll go on to our section, and everyone kind of splits up. And
now we were talking earlier about
a team.
Boys playing girls sports, and have you encountered any girls wrestling in a boys sport?
Girls, there's a ton of girls around, and Massachusetts is doing. They've gone towards a huge thing where they're actually going to start a girls' league, and it's going to be a freestyle league, and there's going to be clinics and everything, and there's actually going to be girls wrestling in Massachusetts, I believe, in the spring. And it's going to be a spring sport.
And they'll probably have like 10 schools there, right, to compete in.
At least, yeah. I mean, you look at varsity, there's a girl from North Andover. She was online. I saw her myself in a tournament. She won the first tournament we went to, the Wayland tournament, which is a very difficult beginning of the year tournament. Very tough teams that are in it. She was the champion.
Well, you got to figure it's weight class, so she's the same weight as the guys. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and especially, girls, by the time they're 16, most of them are full grown. And some of them are pretty angular, wiry.
Yep.
You probably can get good leverage.
I've been at tournaments where there's been 2 girls in the finals of basically a boy sport. So
now, what happens at the end? Like you said, you go as a team. What happens at the end of the year? Do you have to qualify as a team?
What goes on is it's difficult because they have. You'll go to the sectionals.
Everybody goes to the sectionals.
Everyone qualifies. Every team qualifies, but then you're on your own. And what happens is if you place in the top 4 of your weight class, you qualify for the state tournament.
That's at the sectionals.
That's at the sectionals. That gets you into the state tournament. If you place in the state tournament, I forget if it's top 5 or 4 again. I think it's top 5. You move on to the all-state tournament. And then it goes from there. If you place in I think it's top 6, you make it to the New Englands.
Now, there's got to be a lot of scrapes and cuts and soft tissue injuries with wrestling, and skin and soft tissue infections are a big deal in the community, especially some of these resistant bacteria.
Yeah.
Is that much of a problem for your athletes?
Knock on wood, we haven't had anything this year. We've had issues where you have to sit a kid because he has to go see, he may get ringworm or impetigo and have to see a doctor to get a note, and he has to be treated for 72 hours before he can come back to participate. And we haven't had any. We take precautions. The kids, proper hygiene. The mats get cleaned before we even step on them every day.
And how about concussions? Any issues there?
We've had one this year, which is something we're familiar with, especially with everything now, having to take courses on it. We've had one so far this year where a kid, went head-to-head with a kid and actually had to get some stitches in his head, but he's back. He's good to go. You just got to watch that stuff. Sometimes kids won't tell you, but you got to look in their eye and you can tell.
Now, during a meet, is there only one competition going on at once, like one class, or are there more than one?
During a dual meet, it'll be one weight class at a time. So
everybody be cheering for each other?
Everyone's on 2 benches, and you cheer for each other, and you pick a weight, and that used to be you started at 100 pounds and ended at heavyweight, and it kind of laid a lot of weight on the heavyweights all the time, so now you draw a weight. You'll start at that weight and finish at the weight below it.
Now a lot of these athletes must compete against each other for years. So
yeah.
how often do you get in situations where somebody's really wrestling a close friend almost in the tournaments?
A lot. I mean, a lot of these kids have clubs that they go to. There's clubs in Lowell that a lot of kids go to, a Doughboy Club in Lowell. And all of those kids have been wrestling each other year-round. And so everyone knows everyone, plus with everything online, they know what they're doing and everything. So it's kind of a thing. When I wrestled, we didn't have that. You showed up and saw the kid that you were wrestling when you walked on the mat, and that was it.
But, yeah, you had a great wrestler a couple of years ago that competed against a star and beat him, didn't he? I mean, I'm trying to think back a couple of years ago.
We had John Upton, who was very good a few years ago, that was 6th in New England. He was a captain for us.
How about Smirls' kid?
He was. I remember him. He was at the All.
He
was at the All States with Upton, but he was in a higher weight class. So
these kids must get pumped up when sectionals come, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
compare that to football. Someone like Wallace in a big football game against Wakefield in a big meet.
Spencer's one of those where he's so new to the sport. He'll just, he's kind of relaxed, and then when it's time for him to go, it takes him about a few seconds, and he puts his headgear on and his singlets on, and he's just like focused, and he goes out there and does what he does. Where football takes you get meetings and stuff like that.
Within the sport, is there any concern about performance-enhancing drugs? Because you think that would,
absolutely.
Of any sport, this would be a huge
absolutely,
one.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen some kids where you're like, it's crazy that they're the size they are, but
from one year to the other?
It's, I mean, I wouldn't say a sudden thing, but there's...
So you just look at a kid and say, that doesn't look right.
Yeah, no, I mean, usually what you'll hear is coaches say, wow, I wish we had those kids in my school, So.
And how many more competitions do you have?
We have about 20, we have probably about 15 more dual meets.
Do you get much attendance at some of these matches?
We did last night at the Marcoux Gym. Was packed. Reading likes to bring a lot of people, and then we get a good fan base in there, and that's a perfect gym for wrestling. I mean, the stands aren't huge, so it always looks crowded. The gym gets loud when it gets going, so it's perfect. There's a lot of fans that go. I mean, you go to the All States, there's thousands of people. The Lowell Holiday Tournament this year and last year was held at Tsongas Arena. So.
And if you had let's say an elementary schooler that were interested, how would they get into wrestling?
They'd just go right through the Melrose Recreation Department, and there's, I believe online, there's a sign up, and they're going to start January 16th, it's the first date that they can sign up, and that's K through 5, and then the middle schools are been going for a while.
How's the refereeing in wrestling?
Good.
Is it good?
I mean, it's good. I mean, there's some.
You don't have to worry about.
It's wrestling's so tough that you gotta, as a coach, compose yourself. You can't. There are times when you see mistakes, but.
Are you right there with them, cheering them on? Are you right?
I'm right. We're in the corner. We're closer than they are, just yelling instructions to them, and some kids, they for the most part they all listen. They can hear you when you're yelling at them.
Did you wrestle?
I did. I wrestled for Melrose High. I graduated in '91.
Who was your coach then?
My coach back then was, I had Frank Smith and John Sullivan.
Did you play football too?
I played football.
What did you like better?
You know what? It was a mix. It was a talk. I love football. I mean, I love playing football, and then it was just, I was one of those small kids where my father's like, hey, you're an undersized kid, you're probably not going to be playing football. And
now, as a coach, you coach football in the fall, and then wintertime you coach wrestling. After the football season's over, do you get psyched up for wrestling? I mean, is it one of those things where you can't wait for wrestling?
I don't have time. I don't have time. We play Thanksgiving, and you got that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you walk in the door Monday, and there's your first practice. So
a lot of people that watch this, they just like volleyball. A lot of people more into baseball and football and basketball. Then you see what these kids are going through in wrestling and volleyball, how much time they're putting into it.
Yeah.
And how really, both programs have been terrific.
Yeah.
And, it's really nice to see, and a lot of people don't even realize what these kids are doing.
Yeah,
well, I think I think that it's always great to see kids have a lot of success, and usually the success, I would think in a sport like wrestling, it takes so much discipline. It would be hard for me to imagine a bad kid or a bad student being a successful wrestler.
Right. Absolutely. And you do get some kids that are on that line of not being a great kid, but they're tough kids, and they can go out, and maybe that's their outlet. They don't have a ton of success in school, but they're able to get by, and then they come out with us, and it's one-on-one, and sometimes you see those kids thrive in a sport like wrestling, and football and other things too. So it's kind of a sport where you can take any type of kid. We've had kids in the band be very successful. You name it. Any type of kid you could think of at Melrose High School has been successful in wrestling at Melrose.
Is there any online presence for Melrose Wrestling? We can go to melrosewrestling.com or something and see what's going on.
There was a website. We're going to try to get it. It's been down for a while, and we're going to try to get that back going so we can get that up. We do have kind of a base of former alumni and stuff. We have this year, March 24th is a Saturday. We're going to have a fundraiser at the Knights of Columbus. We have the funny guy Dave Russo who's going to be there with some other entertainment and stuff. So that's in the works. We did it last year and had some success. So we kind of try to get a lot of alumni back for that and get their addresses and everything. And we're trying to get that website back going so we can get everyone more involved into the program.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Jim.
Thank you.
And good luck to the team down the stretch.
Thank you.
Good luck, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
We'll be right back.
Athlete Training Tips by Cats Sports Performance Center.
Hi, welcome to this week's Cats Training Tips on Let's Talk Sports. This is Craig Galloway from Cats in Wilmington, Mass, and I'm going to give you a couple tips today for wrestlers. A little background on me: I actually was a collegiate wrestler for Cornell, who's now a phenomenal team, ranked high in the nation every year. And I want to give you a couple things. Typically what I'll do in these tips is I give you an agility tip and a strength tip. And when you think about agility for wrestlers, it's not always necessarily the first thing that comes to mind. But agility is critically important. You see these guys at the high levels getting into these scrambles and things like that. You need to be able to move and manipulate your body. So my agility tip for wrestlers is going to be a little unique, and it's actually something that you've seen a lot on TV but might not associate with your sport, and that's breakdancing. Yes, breakdancing is my agility tip for wrestlers. So one of the things that you see a lot in wrestling, okay, we're in our referee's position, all right? We're going to drive hips through, all right? This is an important movement right here. We want to be powerful and quick with that movement. So if we practice doing these types of moves, and then back under, and then back through, and then back under, back through, back through, back under, okay? Now I can't do the backspin or any of that stuff, but I can do those hip heights all day long. And it's a phenomenal tip. It's a great way to improve your speed and your movement skills going in those positions that you're going to utilize on the mat all the time. And that really right now is your basic agility tip for wrestling. And I'll be right back in a few minutes with your strength tip. And welcome back to Cat's Training Tip for Wrestlers this week. So we just did a cool little agility, and you should have some fun with that, have contests and practice and see who can be the best breakdancer. And when you're done with that, then we get into a little bit of the strength side of wrestling. Now, wrestling, one of the big things I see, especially with the young wrestlers, okay? We all like to be up high in our stance, all right? We get a little bit bent over here, and when we take a shot, we shoot down, okay? One of the reasons why we do that is because we're weak through what we call our posterior chain. So our glute muscles, our hamstrings, and our back. And the other thing that happens in wrestling is we need a lot of mobility. If you're tight and locked in, that really limits your movement skills, and it's really critically important. If you look at the guys at the highest levels, the way that they move and their ability to manipulate their bodies is pretty incredible. So this one, they're going to give you a couple drills, but it's all going to start from a basic squat. And we want to do squats in the best way possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this stick, okay, it's a sawed-off hockey stick. You can use a broom handle or anything straight that you have. We're going to bring it up over the top of our head, standing in a good athletic stance. From here, all I want to be able to do is do a really deep squat, maintaining this bar position behind my head. All right? The first movement on this overhead squat is not knees forward. All right? We want to work that hip mobility and get strong in our back. So the first movement is to hip hinge. Push your butt back like you're sitting back into a chair and keep going down, down, down to the ground. Notice that bar did not come forward. My head did not move forward. Okay? These are the things that we want to work on. Okay? As you get a little better, you might grab a little closer grip. And we squat down, head and chest stay up. Hips go back. All right? If you're doing it wrong, you're going to see, you're going to do this. You're going to rise up on your toes. You're going to get forward with the bar. Work it backwards. That will increase your mobility through your shoulders, which you need. We're often extended on the mat. It will increase your mobility in your hips, and it will increase your leg strength. When you're done with those to loosen up and get some mobility, now we just want to work on basic squats, good squat position. All right? When we get good at these squats, we do body weight squats. Notice I hug the tree. I throw my arms out in front. That helps create a little bit of a counterbalance so I can push myself back and utilize these big muscles, okay? If I'm comfortable getting down here, now when I shoot in, you're gonna see an explosion from down below, and I'm not gonna get snapped my head into the mat, because as I'm driving through my shot, I'm actually gonna be coming up into the opponent, and that is gonna be a lot more fun for you than getting your head planted into the mat. So today, we work overhead squats, we work body weight squats, and the progression from there to add the power is to body weight squat and jump. Squat and jump. So we gain some explosion. You develop these muscles, you develop that strength, you develop that explosion, you'll be much more successful on the mat. And now I'm winded, so ready to conclude today's training tip for wrestlers. We'll welcome you back next time.
CATS, the Competitive Athlete Training Zone. For more information, visit catsports.com or call 978-658-4220. CATS, where athletes train.
Welcome back. It's Let's Talk Basketball, our favorite sport and what many people tell us is the only one we know something about. First, let's talk about the Celtics, who, after a disappointing 0-3 start, should be 0-2 and one game stolen by the referees.
And they beat four. They've had 4 tremendous victories against Detroit, 2 against Washington, and 1 against New Jersey without their top 3 players.
Yeah.
But it's great. At least they're back to 4-3 run.
Yeah, we have to take it wherever we can get it.
They have a big game tomorrow night against Indiana. So
I'm very surprised by some of the players, especially Brandon Bass.
he's been unreal. He's been so much better than Big Baby. Even though Big Baby was real good at the beginning of last year, Bass, his jump shot is just perfect. He's right on every time with that jump shot. Took the ball to the hoop last night, looked real good. Rebound, strong. His defense is better than what they said.
Well, Pierce is already talking about him as the 6th man of the year. And, I mean, now here we are, 11 days into the season or something. They're already starting the NBA All-Star voting. Like you can make a judgment off a week and a half.
Yeah, and I'm a little worried about Dooling, though. So far he's been inconsistent. One game he looks like he's on, and then the next game, you know, he struggles a little. I'm a little worried about the bench. I mean, Bass is good, but they don't. Daniels, he hasn't showed me anything. Wilcox has been hurt, though, Ron.
Well, how many good teams are there really? Obviously, there's Miami. Dallas hasn't looked too great so far.
No, it'll take them a little while, but they'll recover.
Chicago's a very good team. And
New York's overrated, like I said they were when the beginning of the year, when everybody said that they were going to win the division.
Oklahoma City's very good.
They've been losing, too, lately.
I know. I think they've lost 2. And then somehow Portland's won a few games. I don't know who they're playing. You know, the Lakers, they have issues, too. I'm not sure that they're...
Richard Bynum's back now playing great. He's playing the best basketball of his life. I mean, he's been real good, and they've won a couple in a row with him. And him and Gasol down low. I mean, they're going to be tough to beat, I think, once they get everybody back.
How are the Clippers doing? I haven't really been paying much attention to how Paul's working out.
They were at 3-2, and I think they won their last game. But they've been struggling a little. I mean, Paul's done okay, but it's an adjustment for him. Like I said last show, I mean, New Orleans was constantly setting picks for him. You know, constantly he was coming off picks. where the Celtics don't set much for Rondo because he really doesn't need it. So let's see how he does with them.
Well, it was interesting last night with Avery Bradley in that, his job is to create havoc defensively, and then if he scores a few points, great. But I really like Rivers' comment, which spills over to our teams too, is that sometimes players get so worried about their offense they don't focus on doing what they do best.
And here's the one problem with Rivers, what he will not do, and I hope he does, he's got to let Bradley play. Bradley has to play. He's the best defensive player on the ball in the league. In the league, forget the Celtics. I've never seen a guard that gets right up in your face and you can't beat him. He's right up on you the whole game. And his jump shot's getting better. Let the kid play.
Well, the other thing is you have to establish yourself as a player like a guy like Bruce Bowen did, so that way you can foul people and they don't call it.
Right. But, I mean, that's going to be a key. Is he going to play dueling? I mean, dueling, is going to have to play. He can hit that three-point shot, but he's got to let Bradley play. He has to get his minutes because I can see him developing halfway through the year, becoming a real good basketball player all around.
Well, and as much as it's going to pain Rivers to do this, he has to play the younger guys more. It doesn't do any good to win by 20 if Pierce and Allen are playing 35 minutes. It's just too many minutes.
Right, and then Petrus, if he's healthy when he comes,
all right.
They'll be playing. He'll be taking minutes away from Allen and Pierce and helping out. He's one guy who can hit the three-point shot. I mean, Bradley's showing it too. And who is it, Moore? Moore's another one who can shoot that three-point shot.
And then we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the new Bill Russell.
Yeah, Heinsohn, he's unbelievable.
Heinsohn's talking about backup development league center Greg Steamsma as the new Bill Russell. He's got timing like Bill Russell. I mean, it's painful.
He blocked 5 shots in that game. The first shot he blocked, he tripped over Lewis, fell on top of Lewis, and the coach got thrown out of the game. It was really funny just to see the whole thing. And then Heinsohn saying he has timing like Russell after one game.
I mean, he's an aggressive player. He's fun to watch, but come on.
If he can give him a few minutes, but key to that team too is going to be Jermaine O'Neal. He has to stay healthy. Wilcox was out 3 games with a bad shoulder. Now he's back. He's got to give him better minutes, Wilcox. But let's see. The bench I'm a little worried about. It may end up being strong if Bradley really turns into the player we think he can become.
And I think Allen's making $10 million this year, and he's looking for a, quote, long-term deal. What is he, 36 years old?
I mean, they should sign him till next year, too. Give him another $10 million for next year. I mean, the guy's always going to be a great shooter.
Right.
Just don't dribble the ball and try to pass. He turns it over all the time.
He likes to stay in great shape, so you don't have to worry about that. Right.
And you need players like him run.
He's not good handling the ball. Catch and shoot, he's fantastic.
You need players like him. If they're going to double up on Rondo or try to trap down on Rondo, he can kick it out to him. Rondo's great at getting him the ball. Even Pierce now was looking for him. And he's a huge plus for the team. I mean, Ainge doesn't have to give him anything now because he knows he wants to stay here next year, so he can wait till the season's over. If he's still playing fine, he can, offer him $10 million or whatever again next year. But I mean, I think they're gonna compete. Forget the Knicks. Forget the Knicks until what's his name comes back, the point guard that they got, the one who's
Billups.
No, Billups is over with. He's over with in the West Coast, Billups. But they don't have a point guard right now who can control that team. And Chandler's not going to really help them. I mean, he'll get a few boards. He'll score 10 points. But they make him out to be an all-star.
Well, Stoudemire and Anthony are potent
Davis,
force.
Byron Davis.
Oh, Baron Davis.
Baron
yeah.
Davis. He'll help him a lot when he comes back, but he's going to be out for 8 more weeks.
Well, let's shift gears and talk about high school basketball. First, we'll talk a little bit more about the boys. For those who don't know, the boys are off to a 5-0 start. They're 4-0 in the Middlesex League. They're playing excellent basketball. They're very quick, very unselfish, and they've had a little bit of an injury problem with Franzi Perot out, but so far they've been outstanding, and they haven't really been getting their due. I was on Twitter with, I think it's Brandon Hall from ESPN Boston, and saying, how can you rank Lexington ahead of Melrose when Melrose beat Lexington by 20 in their gym? And he said, well, Lexington had a win against Catholic Memorial and only lost by 4 to Newton North. What is that about?
Then he should look at Melrose 4-0. I think they're 4-0, 5-0 now. Melrose beats Lexington by 20, and I mean, it was like a 30-point game, really. Melrose could have beat them by 30 just as easily. They were winning by 20 when we got there, and they just blew them away.
They have a pretty much three-guard offense. Sherlock is kind of a small forward, big guard, and they have Welch and Adams out there, excellent ball handlers. Adams is a shooter, scorer, do a lot of things. Welch is a defensive whiz, and they've got a number of versatile big guys.
Yeah, what's really helped them this year is Welch. He's really improved in his ball handling. He's become a real good point guard. Adams, great point guard too. Sherlock could actually play point guard. I mean, they have 3 kids who could play point guard on just about every high school team.
And they're so quick. They like to use a variety of presses, 1-2-2, 2-2-1. I haven't really seen the 2-3, I don't think, and man-to-man. And, they're really quick, very athletic players, and they create a lot of havoc defensively.
Yeah, I mean, they're at their best in the transition game, going up and down the court. The scouting reports for a lot of these teams are going to be to slow them down if you can. That's why, teams like they're playing Wakefield tomorrow night.
Should be a great
game. And you want them to play against teams that like to run because, I mean, that's a huge advantage for Melrose.
And up front, Sam Gillis had 25 the other night. Denzel Jones has been very steady all year long. Good rebounder, good defender, just very solid player. Has a nice three-point shot, too.
Yeah, and Gillis is strong down low. Against teams that are real big, he'd still be effective, but he won't be able to dominate the game.
Well, he's so quick to the ball. The other night against Burlington, he would grab the rebound, come down and go up before the defender could even make a play.
And in there, when Perot gets healthy, I mean, Franzi Perot, he's so quick himself.
Yeah, he's supposed to be back Friday, I heard.
And Jones, really, he can hit the outside shot. He got a lot of rebounds in the game we did last week.
And Rich Barney's a reasonable backup.
Barney and Young are playing.
Heady player. So, things are looking pretty good for the boys right now.
Yeah, I think they can beat anybody, especially if they play an up-tempo game. Again, we were talking, I'd love to see them play a team like Charlestown that loves to run, one of those teams. I mean, that would be a fun game to watch.
Well, and then the girls have gone to 2-4 with a win the other day against Burlington. They're playing better. Unfortunately, the injury bug hit them as Sydney Doherty went down with some unspecified leg injury. Hopefully she'll be back soon. We don't know the nature of her injury, and she was already playing with a hand injury.
Yeah, against Burlington, Shannon Layoff and Jenny McGee had their best games of the season. Both of them had real strong games. I think Jenny's starting to turn things around, playing better. I'd like to see her take that jump shot more.
Right. Shannon made a really heady play. It was late in the game with about 20 seconds to go. Burlington was bringing the ball up. Brooke Bell forced the ball handler into an error, and she was able to get the ball to Shannon with maybe 13, 14 seconds to go. Instead of trying to score a basket with a 3-point lead with 15 seconds or less, Shannon dribbled the ball away, killed time, got fouled, made 2 shots. A really smart basketball play, which is the kind of play we expect from Shannon.
Yeah, you just want to see them, keep improving. You want to see them become more competitive against teams that are good teams. There are times where, like at the beginning of the game against Burlington, when Burlington started off with the trap, they start off with a trap, and then Melrose is not attacking it. They're very passive. They're defensive-minded. They don't want to lose the ball. They've got to start getting that identity that they're good enough. And that situation is perfect. If I could explain one thing to them, in that situation, you're too worried about making a bad pass, and not attacking them.
Well, we talked about this with our young players the other day. We said, if you're going to make a risky pass that's going to lead to nothing, why would you do that? Whereas if you're going to make a riskier pass with a possible layup on the other end, at least you got a high reward for a higher risk situation. And if you attack the zone trap, there's a good chance you're going to come out of it with a layup. In the half court right now, Melrose is not getting very many easy shots.
Yeah, you have to have the mindset. When you're attacking. It's not only the person with the ball. The people without the ball have to cut to the right spots where they can make the pass, cut from the other angle, make another pass, and then before you know, you have a 2-on-1 break, which eventually Melrose got 3 baskets against that trap. First basket, Kayla Weiland hit an open jump shot. Next 2 times they made 2 passes, got the pass down low, layups both times. So eventually they did get 3 baskets, but it took them a little while, and that's what you want to see. When you're talking about a team having their identity,
Well, that's exactly what I was
understanding
going to say about identity. Historically, Melrose has been a transition team playing aggressive man-to-man defense, had pretty good height and a lot of athleticism. Right now, Melrose doesn't have quite the identity that they've had in the past, and they're searching for that.
Yeah, they're searching. And the one thing that worries me, are they really searching, Ron, or do they just, I worry that they say, okay, this is as good as we're going to be. Let's go out and play. We win, we win. You know, we're going to compete. But I worry that they don't understand what identity is and what level they can get to. Maybe that's it.
We watched the girls play all summer. They play aggressive basketball, transition basketball in the open court. They look pretty good. And then, you know, we get into a more controlled, structured game where maybe we don't have the type of players that fit into that style as well as we have in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it last year and I've said it this year, and people they're getting sick of hearing me say it, that this team is better and can be a lot better than they think they can be. Let's put it that way. We talk about having an identity of each other and the team.
Well, if we look at levels in the league, I think both of us would agree that Reading is a superior team. However, I'm not sure that Woburn is head and shoulders above this team.
They showed it over the summer when they almost beat Woburn, and Woburn had their whole team. And Brookbell had that great game against their guards and our 4s and 5s. Like, remember last time I told you, where's Kayla Weiland and where's Rachel Johnson been? I mean, they're working out there, but you talk about two people that haven't found their identity with the team and the team looking at them. Okay, like someone like Brooke, what can Rachel give us? What can Kayla give us? I mean, when both of them are in there together, they're both physical, set picks, roll off the picks, and look for them coming off the pick. And when I talk about having an identity, I don't think, like someone like Brooke has passed the ball a number of times down low and it's gone off players' hands. And she's starting to get a little frustrated with that. But there are times when these girls are in the game and they're trying to do something, but they're not involved.
Well, think back to many years ago in college, the championship, Houston versus North Carolina State. Houston, Phi Slamma Jamma, up and down. North Carolina State slowed the game down to a crawl. Houston only had one dunk the whole game. North Carolina State wins at the end. North Carolina State took away Houston's identity for that game, as well as Guy Lewis, the coach, telling the players to play controlled ball instead of letting them just go out and do what they do.
Right, and it's no knock on the girls, when we name the girls because we like them. And again, we saw how they played this summer, and people can say, well, it was the summer and this is the winter now, but girls like Rachel Johnson and Kayla played terrific this summer on the boards. No one out-rebounded us. Well, why are we getting out-rebounded now? I mean, it's like, well, you saw against Burlington, they had the two big people down low, Smith and
Hood.
Smith and Hood. We were giving them the angle on the passes every time, and they were just turning around and laying it in. Finally, Coach Ferranti took out Jenny McGee after Jenny scored 2 baskets. He takes Jenny out. Jenny's upset about going out because she was starting to get in the flow, but she wasn't playing good D.
And she came back in and
what
played
did she
terrific.
Do? She came back in and had her best game of the season the rest of the game. Played great defense.
Well, the way it is growing up in boys basketball is you make a mistake or a series of mistakes, you get the worst seat in the house next to the coach. Girls, it's harder to be the same style of playing them. And sometimes if you don't give players a chance to play through some mistakes, then they won't try to do things. And especially as a young player, the only way you're going to learn to play is to try to do new things.
And what I liked in the last game, when you talk about having an identity, Brooke Bell knew that Shannon Leif was having a good game. So what did she do in the second half? Brooke Bell was constantly going to Shannon wide open, and Shannon was getting really comfortable. Now, you saw that part of it, right? And you say to yourself, okay, great. Shannon has to have a lot more confidence now. She had her best game. She has to be looking forward to the Wakefield game. The rest of the girls know that they have more confidence in Shannon now.
Well,
she worked hard.
The other thing is, there's a lot of dirty work that has to be done in basketball. You have to set hard screens. You have to fight through picks. You have to be willing to dive on the floor, block out people, give up your body. And that's not a natural thing for most girls. But if you want to excel at the high school level or above, that's what you have to do. And it's hard to, especially when players are getting short spells sometimes. Hard to come off the bench 2 minutes and really make a difference. So giving the core group of players more time to execute or not, seems like it's getting more results.
Right, another girl you have to give credit to. In the last couple of games, I've really noticed her playing, Leah Lamoni. I mean, she's one girl the last 2 years I've been on about playing her position and not seeing the floor better. But she's really given an effort and a half the last 2 games. She's working hard out there. She's rebounding. She had at least 5 rebounds against Burlington. She was down there helping out on the defensive boards. She's hitting, she's taking good shots. I haven't seen her force many shots. She's playing within the team. And she's looking good too. But, I mean, this team could really come together. I mean, they could be hearing me say this and they're saying, hey, we're playing as hard as we can. But this team could be much better once they really get an identity on what to do. Like what I just said about Brooke, understanding that Shannon was having a good game and Jenny McGee was doing good. And now Rachel was more involved in the game against Burlington than she was in the 2 previous games. Everybody's got to get involved and play the way they can play.
Well, there's always this tension between structured play where coaches have a lot of influence of what happens versus more freelance play where players get away from, I'll call it robotic choices. We're going to run this play. I have to get the ball here or I have to cut there, as opposed to I'm going to go to the open spot. I'm going to set a screen so someone else is going to be open. And it may not be as comfortable for coaching staff sometimes to watch that type of basketball. And we're trying to, on our level, go totally that way, so we're away from set plays to encourage players to express themselves creatively. And where that balance exists, it's just hard to know how to find it.
Yeah, and Coach Ferranti, he didn't see them play much this summer,
right?
Because they're not supposed to be around all that much anyway. And I know he worries about that. He doesn't want people seeing him there and thinking that he's coaching them and all that. And
well, you mean, we won't name any other coaches that are seen all the time.
Catholic coaches, Catholic school coaches.
No, nobody that we're thinking about. But
But I mean, I like you said, they're much better in the open court running the floor, but they have to identify better. They have to attack more. They can't be worried about turning the ball over. And the girls without the ball have got to be cutting a lot quicker.
Well, like I said, if you're throwing the ball into the low post for a layup, I'm much more willing to accept that than the entry pass to the wing that goes out of bounds because the player's not open or it isn't a good pass, because the initial wing pass isn't going to generate anything.
Yeah, they have a huge game tomorrow night against Wake. Tomorrow night's going to be a big night. I mean, people aren't going to see this, but hopefully a lot of people go to that game because the girls' game's a huge game. They can get to 3 and 4. Their schedule's not real tough. I mean, they're all done with Woburn and Reading.
And Lexington.
So, I mean, they could go on a run if they keep improving, or they can't be satisfied with just playing the way they've been playing. They got to keep getting better.
Well, you never want to take any opponent for granted. You want to respect them, but just because you respect them doesn't mean that you should cede anything to them.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph LaBella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.